My phone on.
Okay, James, let's kick it off. How's that sound?
Sounds good.
Okay. Okay, everybody. Firstly, thank you so much for joining us on our live streaming. And what we're trying to bring you here at 180 Markets is information and news that matters, company specific, and really situations that are groundbreaking. And I can't think of a more groundbreaking area than in medicine, and especially when you can cure or potentially on a pathway to curing big addressable markets and the big unmet needs. And that's why today, a company that if you're watching the share market, Nyrada, they've had huge news in their preclinical trials. And we are joined today by CEO James Bonnar, and he's going to talk to all of us about it. James, welcome.
Great to be here. Thanks for inviting me on.
Great. Hey, James, obviously, let's get right to it here. Preclinical trials, big unmet need, groundbreaking day, I suppose, for Nyrada, but can you just tell us a little bit about it?
Sure. So the study that we've just completed and reported on was a study looking at stroke in mice. And we're very pleased to report that the drug that we're developing, NYRBIO3, showed excellent efficacy and safety in that study. We reported a better than 40% neuroprotection in this model. And also pleasingly, we got a good result supporting that in a blood biomarker of injury. And it was also pleasing to see that the animals that were given the drug in the trial showed no adverse effects from the drug. So we're very pleased with the results. It exceeded our expectations.
Right. And James, to be clear, obviously, preclinical, first things first is safety. Second thing is efficacy, which you did show efficacy as well. Is that correct?
So we showed efficacy, and we also got a very good indication that the drug was well tolerated in these mice. The next step for the program is to take the drug into some mandatory safety testing that we need to do before we go into human clinical studies. So this drug is novel and new. It's never been tested in humans before. So we have to take a cautious approach, run those mandatory safety studies before we dose humans.
Right. But James, what also makes it so exciting is, can you just talk about brain trauma and the unmet need and what maybe else, are there any cures right now?
So the situation with stroke, there is a class of drugs. These are called clot-busting drugs or TPA drugs, and the way these drugs work is they basically break the clot down in the artery. Unfortunately, the drug needs to be given in a very narrow time window. So patients who are amenable to this treatment, it's only around 10 to 15% of patients. So for those other patients, the treatment options are very limited. In terms of brain injury, traumatic brain injury, this is, think of, say, falls or severe knocks to the head, motor vehicle accidents, and so on. There are no currently approved, FDA-approved drugs for treating traumatic brain injury. So the exciting thing about this program is that it really opens the door for a first-in-class treatment. And we're talking about significant markets in both indications. If you look at stroke, for example, there's a stroke occurring every roughly 20 minutes in Australia, and
Wow.
around 13 million annually around the world. So it's a huge market with unmet clinical need, and the same applies to traumatic brain injury. Well north of 10 million traumatic brain injuries occur every year around the world. So it's an exciting
Right.
space to be working in.
Yeah, and obviously enormous total addressable market, as you said, especially when you combine strokes and accidents, if you will. Now,
Yep.
it's all about the future in the share market. For Nyrada, what are the next steps? How are we going to follow up?
So we've already shown efficacy in a stroke model. The next stage of development is to look at how the drug performs in traumatic brain injury. So we've got a study that's just about to get underway with the US Department of Defense. And this is with a group called the Walter Reed Army Institute of Research.
Yes.
And this is a division of the DoD that were specifically set up to study traumatic brain injury. And I think as most listeners or viewers will understand, traumatic brain injury is a huge health concern for the military. And so they're very focused on supporting companies like Nyrada to develop a first-in-class treatment for this condition. So the work that we're doing with Walter Reed, they have a model set up to study ballistic penetrating brain injury. As I said, the study's about to start. But we will be progressing with the safety studies that I mentioned earlier in parallel with that. Following that, we're looking to make a quick transition into a phase 1 healthy human volunteer study, which will be run here in Australia, and that'll commence in the second half of the year.
Wow, so that's really upon us. Second half of the year. It's already February into March tomorrow, I believe. So it is here.
We've got a busy program planned, and we're all excited with the way the year's started off, and looking forward to to reporting those results to the market.
And this phase 1, so if it begins in kind of mid 2024, how long does it progress for?
So the phase 1 study is run over a number of cohorts or groups of patients, and the way phase 1 studies are typically run is that you give what's called a bolus dose or a single dose of the drug, and then you escalate that dose, and then you progress into administering the drug like it will be given to a brain injury patients. So we've developed this drug as a treatment that'll be given to patients as a 3-day infusion. So it'll be administered over 72 hours. That is the basis for the phase 1 study. Following that, we'll then take the drug into a phase 2 clinical study where we'll test it in real brain injured patients.
Right. So this is a very short, sharp timeline, if you will.
Yeah, it's on an accelerated timeline. Obviously, we want to get it into the clinic as soon as possible, and move it forward into broader testing in the target patient population.
Right. And James, can you just be a little bit more specific? How does your product work, and what does it actually do? And please bear in mind that we're not necessarily all scientists.
Sure. So following a brain injury, and that could be from a motor vehicle accident or a stroke, you get a biochemical cascade of events that occur in the brain, and ultimately this leads to cell death. And this is the process that occurs in the hours and days following the primary injury. And what this drug does is it's been specifically developed to block a family of ion channels in the brain. And these channels are responsible for letting an ion called calcium into the brain cells, and that calcium builds up to toxic levels, and it effectively kills the cell. So what we're doing with this drug is that we're blocking that process and reducing what's called secondary brain injury. So if you think about an injury being an infarct in the brain that expands over time, this drug stops that process from happening and minimizes that secondary brain damage. So the ultimate aim of the drug is to reduce mortality and reduce the level of disability that these patients experience in their recovery.
Right. And I can imagine why so many people globally then are interested.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's exciting to be pioneers in this area. Where the approach we're taking to treating secondary brain injury is novel. As far as we're aware, we're the only company in the world who are taking this approach. We're excited to see how it goes in human clinical trials.
Yes, and before I let you go, though, I want to go back to Walter Reed for a second. Is by being also running these studies up in the U.S., does that effectively get more interest in Nyrada?
Well, there's a lot of interest, obviously, in the military and groups that we've spoken with in the US. We've published some research around this approach we're taking, and that's got a lot of attention. But yeah, we're looking forward in later development to taking the drug to the US and running clinical studies over there as well as in Australia. So it's certainly generating a lot of interest.
Yes, and it certainly makes sense there. Again, in conclusion, when you have a massive addressable need, a novel approach that's already showing promising results, and then also when we look at your market capitalization, obviously it's still a small company. Certainly, there's a lot of blue sky ahead, isn't it? Is that how you see it as well?
That's certainly the way we see it, for sure. Yeah, we're excited by what the rest of the year will bring.
Right. James, thank you for joining us on such short notice. Congratulations on a great day. Investors, if you have any questions, just send them our way and we'll make sure to follow up with you. Thanks everybody for watching.
Thanks all.
Bye-bye.